and welcome back to another episode of Learn Wine, Love Wine. Today, I should probably position this slightly more on screen. We are looking at the differences between Prosecco and Champagne. I thought, you know what? I'm going to start by explaining this. Apparently there's data that 24 people a year die from corks in the eye. Super dangerous. And we thought Prosecco was enjoyable and fun. It's not. And most of these happen at weddings. So just be careful. So I thought I would open a bottle up. As an ex-sommelier, you would assume I can do it, but you know, the camera's on me now, so a little bit of pressure. Right, step one, take this off. That went all right. What I want to do, a lot of people, they take the foil off and then they leave the cork. What you want to do is unscrew this and keep it on, right, the whole time. So you want to be loosening it and very, very slowly. If I'm going to be a little bit nicer, I'll do it down here. But you turn the bottle and not the cork. So we've kept the whole thing on. The reason for that, keeping your finger here, is going to stop this popping out. There are so many bars of pressure in Prosecco and even more in Champagne. And so imagine if you leave this, take this thing off, immediately that thing that's protecting it, poof. Anyway, unless you don't like someone, there you go. So if you want them to stay alive, open like that. So today, let's talk about the differences. A lot of people think it's the same because they have bubbles. That's it. That is it. First of all, Prosecco comes from the Prosecco region, DOC, Denominazione di Origine Controlli, or Controllata, shall we say in Italian. The grape is Glera. It used to be called Prosecco, but due to defining the area and making it clearer, the area is now called Prosecco and the grape is Glera. In Champagne can only come from Champagne, you guessed it. They use 3 different types of grapes: Chardonnay, which is a white grape, Pinot Noir, and Pinot Meunier, which are red grapes. So they are the 3. So already we're talking different regions and we're talking different grapes. Then you start looking at styles and how they're made. So Champagne, let's look at the flavours. Champagne is a little bit more biscuity, maybe a bit more brioche, a little bit more savoury, creamier, the bubbles are finer. Prosecco is fun in general. You can get some slightly serious Proseccos, but as a general rule are fun, are fruity, are softer, and a lot of the time a little bit sweeter. But I'm going to get on sweetness in a second. So how are they made differently? We have the traditional method in Champagne, and we have the Charmat method in Prosecco. So both of them start with their different grape varieties, remember. I hope you've got a pen and paper, okay? We're taking notes. This is a serious one, okay? When talking about bubbles, we get serious. So with the traditional method, you've taken your 3 main grapes, Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, Pinot Meunier. You've made them into a wine like any other wine has been made, the first fermentation. What you then do is that wine goes back in a bottle and you add in some sugar and some yeast, the 2 items you definitely need for another fermentation, and the yeast will make that sugar turn into alcohol. The fact that there is now going to be a lid on this champagne means that as a byproduct, when sugar is converting into alcohol, carbon dioxide is released and it can't go anywhere. So this tries to get out but just dissolves into the wine. When that's dissolving into the wine, you get finer bubbles because it's a much smaller area, so it has to dissolve a little bit nicer, okay? When you go over to Prosecco, good old Prosecco land, they use the Charmat method. They've got their Glera grape, they've made their wine, and then what they do is they add the sugar and the yeast, but in a big stainless steel tank. Same thing happens, carbon dioxide is released, bubbles are created. But one, the area is much larger, so the bubbles are much bigger. You can make it a lot quicker. And the reason you can make it a lot quicker, you're not putting every single thing into individual bottles and having to then deal with taking all that yeast and all the extra products out at the end. As soon as the product is finished in Prosecco, in the stainless steel tank, they literally dissolve, take the wine off, leave all the remaining yeast, all the bits, that had fallen to the bottom of the tank, and then they put it in bottle. Done. And you sell it straight away, and we start having fun. Champagne, on the other hand, is in the bottle. All that yeast that I said that falls, it's a natural product that always falls to the bottom of a tank or a bottle, will stay there. And I mentioned the flavours of biscuity, even maybe yogurty, brioche, toast. That in the bottle will gradually over time give more and more of these flavours. Yeasty bread makes sense, right? You take the bottle and then you have to literally, it's straight, gradually start turning the bottle so it's flat, and then turn it where it's upside down so the yeast actually can come out. Imagine the amount of time that's going to take. So you have to take that yeast out of the bottle. That's a lot more time, and that's going to cost a lot more money. In champagne, minimum 9 months at least lying there, just doing nothing, enjoying the yeasty flavours, giving something extra. As a general rule, that isn't much time, but you'll find that a lot of champagne spends 3 years, maybe 4, longer time on that yeast, and the longer the time, the more those interesting, more savoury, bready flavours will get into the flavour of champagne. You still with me? Maybe? I know. Ask me some questions if you want me to explain it again. However, let's talk about labelling quickly, so that you can understand. Everyone thinks that Prosecco is always sweet. As a general rule, it seems to be sweeter, but you can tell by what it says on the bottle. I have a wine that here says Brut, okay? Brut and extra sec or extra dry are the two that you probably see more often. You would probably imagine that extra dry is drier than Brut, right? No. So let's just go through the levels. Very boring. Extra Brut is going to be less than 6 grams of sugar per litre. Then Brut, which is the more well-known labelling term, because most champagne or Prosecco needs a little bit of sugar to balance. You don't want something that's too austere, okay? So Brut is about 6 grams to 12 grams of sugar. That's what I like. I don't want it to be too sweet. What a lot of Proseccos, especially the cheaper Proseccos, they're going to be extra dry or extra sec, depending on labelling. And that will be 12 to 19 grams of residual sugar per litre. Okay, so they're the ones that you really need to be aware of. Then if you get dry or sec, we're talking 19 grams to 32 grams per litre. Then you have Demi sec, which is getting boring now, right? It's 32 grams to 50 per litre. And then you have Doux, which is 50 and plus. If you get a Prosecco and you see spumante, that means it's going to be really fizzy. If you see frizzante, that means semi-sparkling, so don't expect as much fizz. And then again, we've got all the different labels in champagne. If you see Blanc de Noir, that means it is a white wine, because you'll always see champagne, unless it's labelled rosé, looks white. It's a white wine that is made from noir, black grapes, so the Pinot Noir or the Pinot Meunier. And if you see Blanc de Blanc, that means white from white, means only Chardonnay. Okay, that is enough. I think that's going to start getting you bored. So I am going to taste this Prosecco. Prosecco's cheaper in general than champagne, so I thought I'd do the tasting of this, but this is a fantastic Prosecco. This is Sainsbury's Taste the Difference. Now, normally I get a brand that I really love, a bodega or a house. They can change where they get the grapes from. They work with different producers in Prosecco, and they can change them over the years. But the point about this is a Conegliano Prosecco Superior. If you get a standard Prosecco, it will be a DOC. I mentioned that earlier. This is a DOCG, Denominación de Origen Controlada Garantita. That garantita part means it has to have stricter regulations, the fruit quality will be better, and I'll be happier. So this is from Conegliano. If it's a Superiore, it can only come from a very small area in Prosecco where they have said are the best hills and you're going to get the best quality. And Conegliano or Valdobbiadene is the other one, are the two places, if you ever see them on the label, you know you're in for a very, very good time. Okay, so let's have a little try of this. This, of course, is not going to have the bready flavours, it's not going to have the yeasty flavours, but I'm hoping for slightly finer bubbles and slightly more fruit, because if it's been planted in Conegliano or Val d'Obiadene on steep hills, they've hand-picked everything, the yields have to be lower because it's a DOCG, and so therefore I'm going to be happier. So do you know what? This is very, very fresh. You get beautiful, almost beautiful pears straight away. It's very clean, almost a slight minerality, like a slight chalkiness to it. But it's lovely, it's green, and it's floral, lovely white flowers. Fresh, floral, fruity. That's exactly what I expect. The bubbles are lively. It's got a nice palate, it's quite creamy. It's not sweet, of course, because this is brut, so there's only between 6 and 12 grams of sugar, but it's very refreshing. There's a little bit of honeyed apricot in there, and even something a little bit tropical, but mainly lovely, juicy, soft pears. That's what's coming through for me. I'm not going to talk any more about it. It's delicious. When it comes to supermarket wines, I think you get such good value here. This is £10 a bottle. I already mentioned it's the Sainsbury's Taste the Difference. Go out and try it yourself. What would I pair this with? This and champagne in general. Perfect with so many combinations, way more than normal, in terms of the fact that it's got that vibrant acidity. All champagne and Prosecco needs it. It's really, really fresh and almost quite austere a lot of the time. So oysters, fish, anything creamy, lovely smoked salmon, buttery dishes will be absolutely perfect. And again, one of my perfect combinations, just fried food, some lovely fish and chips. I mean, there's nothing better than a really expensive champagne and some cheap, juicy, delicious fish and chips. Anyway, don't forget as well, the Demi set goes very nicely with scones, fruit tart, those kind of desserts. So you know what? Experiment, play around. Hopefully though, you have enjoyed this video and it's made a little bit of a difference between Prosecco and Champagne. Totally different, both delicious, both yummy. Get yourself a glass. Cheers!